All right, well, thank you everybody for being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Cedrick Noel. I'm a chiropractor. I have a degree in nutrition and a certification in neurology. So chiropractic neurology is an official certification that not everybody knows about, but our training is very rigorous and extensive. And when it comes to brain rehab, it's by far the most cutting edge and advanced training that you can get in neuro rehab. And this is something I've been studying a long time. But just to backtrack a little bit, my original passion and what led me to become a chiropractor was, believe it or not, it was nutrition. It was through diet and seeking to understand nutrition that I eventually became a chiropractor. So my story is that I was born with a genetic defect. I had an aortic valve, one of my valves in my heart that was defective. And so when I would exert myself as a young child, it felt like my heart was going to just explode. It could not handle the demand. And so it was in my teens that I had my valve replaced for a mechanical valve. That surgery went okay, but it came with some complications. So right after that, they found out that the valve was still leaking. It was not sewn in properly. There were some issues, and it was a guarantee that I would have to have it redone. But still, it was far better than what I had before. So that allowed me to play at a very high level college hockey on a scholarship at Life University, which is a chiropractic school here in Georgia. I was recruited to play hockey at Life University, and I was very interested in nutrition and physical therapy at the time. And when I came to interview at the school, I said, do you have a physical therapy program? Because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn something that would allow me to optimize function. And based on what I knew at that time, it was physical therapy. I had no idea what chiropractic was. I knew even at a young age that what we choose to put into our bodies would impact how our bodies can perform and how our bodies can heal. That was kind of an obvious given to me as a teenager. So I knew that diet was going to be a huge part of my future. But I wanted to understand more about the human body, how we can optimize function, even though we all have limitations, we all have physical issues. Some we can overcome and others we can't. But there's so many choices that we get to make every day. I wanted to know, what can I do to leverage those decisions so that I can maximize healing and optimize performance. And I can tell you that today in my 40s, I have more energy than I ever did as a teenager. And so much of that has to do with what I learned and what I've been implementing for my own self and my health through my life. So the reason why I'm here today is because my passion is to teach. We created this clinic, we opened in August, but this has been a long time dream of mine. And of course, the rest of the team cherishes that same vision. But it's to have a place where we can teach the community, but also teach our colleagues. Because what we do in this office is groundbreaking. It's reproduced maybe in a handful of other places in the world. And so we teach what we do to doctors all over the world. And we also continue to learn. So obviously we're teachers, but we're learners. We learn from each other, and we learn from others as well. So we have a pretty wide network of communications to facilitate learning and education so that we can help people better and quicker. And so with that being said, our vision here at Brain and Body Rehabilitation Specialists, man, it's a mouthful. We really wanted to make it a short name, and we completely failed at that. Brain and Body Rehabilitation Specialists, BBRS, that's what we call it. So our vision is to provide the best quality care we can provide. And what we found collectively, because everybody that is here agrees to this vision and embraced that vision even before we came together, is that in order for the body to maximize its potential function, we have to do work with the brain and the body. So some people that come here because they have a problem with the brain, and others have a problem with the body. Regardless, in both situations, if we address the brain and the body, the outcome is better. And so with that being said, a lot of the people that come here are well. And they come here because they want to stay well or they want to optimize performance. And others have serious conditions. And obviously we're here for them as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Again, if you want to get a massage, neuromuscular work during the presentation, you're welcome to do that. And without further ado, I'm going to get started. And I also want to let you know that we're going to do some drawings through the day or through the hour. We could be here all day, but through the hour. We've got a lot of giveaways to offer, and they're going to kind of be in sync with the presentation. So as I teach on a certain topic, I'll pause for a moment and we'll do a quick drawing and offer something that relates to what we're talking about. But for everyone who is here, you all have a gift. So everybody here is able to accept a gift that we are here to offer everyone. And that's on your survey, so make sure to fill that out. At the very bottom, it says yes or no if you want to accept it or not. And it's an assessment. This assessment is to measure 3 really important functions in the body. One is, in order to evaluate the brain, we do a computerized eye movement assessment. And it's called a right eye assessment. So it's a 5-minute test, and as you move your eyes and follow targets, depending on the pattern of movements and what the measurements are, we can actually get a lot of information about your brain function. It's not a cognitive test. It's really a functional test. Also, another one that we would do is balance testing. So we can give you a fall risk rating. It's computerized as well. And also the third one would be a body composition assessment, which will also give you the cellular composition. It tells you the actual integrity of your cells. Do you have enough fluid in your body? And is that fluid in the right places? Is there too much outside the cells versus inside the cells? Really great information. You'll get reports on all of those. And the value for all those is easily $150. I don't think we've actually, I think it's worth a lot more than that. But we'll say $150. So you get a number. But anyway, it's free. If you want to set it up today after the talk, you can schedule a time with Dr. Jose or with Kendra. Jennifer will be here to schedule as well. And it's only free if you schedule it today. You can schedule it for another day, but you have to schedule it here while you're here. So, any questions before we start? Because I won't take any questions during the lecture. We'll take questions after, so that way I can get right through the information. Any questions before we start? All right, very good. Oh, I forgot one announcement before So these presentations, this is not the first time we do a presentation here. We've done 2 other ones already, and we try to do 1 a month. Occasionally we'll miss a month, but I've made a decision to do a whole series, an entire health series through the year. And we're going to cover cardiovascular health, brain health, and a whole bunch of other topics. I do have one scheduled next month. It's the 2nd Saturday of next month in May. And that one is on the autonomic nervous system. That's a specific part of the brain that controls all the parts of your body that you do not think about, that you can't voluntarily control with your own thoughts. So for example, blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate, digestion, immune function, all those things. They're automated. And we have specific diagnostic tools to measure that part of the brain as well. That'll be the gift for May. But that's 2nd weekend in May, and then we'll have a whole other more topics coming up that we'll announce later on as well. But those are all free. You know, this is one thing that as a group when we came together we decided we're going to do community lectures here, and we're going to bring information to the community that is free information to help empower people to become healthier, and that's part of our mission. And so with that being said, if you want to be updated, make sure you put your name and phone number and like fill out the top part of that survey, and make sure we get that survey when you leave. So that way we'll add you to our list. We send out text messages, and that's how you get to find out exactly all that's going on. And a lot of these text messages that I often send are educational. It's just free information that you can use. So it's really valuable. Okay. All right, that's it. Let's start. And I have a lot of slides, and just so you know, if you feel like I get through, I have 10 points. You'll see there's 10 points at the bottom of your sheet. They're all colored. 1 to 3 take the longest. Near the end, it goes really fast. So if you feel like it's going to be forever as I go through, just hang in there. Okay. One of my favorite books ever is the Bible. So let's start there. 2 Timothy 4. It says, "For the time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear." That feels like today to me. You know, this was written forever ago. And the reason why I start with that is really information. You know, the information we get is so confusing to know what can you trust, what can you believe. I mean, do you just feel like we've been lied to for like 3 years, maybe longer? I mean, it's very disappointing, the level of information that we've received and how deceiving and how off and wrong it was. And it continues. And so, you know, and this I'll put in there, the media, of course, you know. By now I think we all know, we just can't. It's always one of those things. You hear something, you're like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, right? And you kind of leave it there. But the WHO, the CDC, the NIH, you know, all those places, all those things that are, there are institutions that are there to give us information so we can make good decisions about our health. And honestly, that information is not always the best information. So many great sources of information have been canceled in the past few years. It's really wrong because the information they were putting out, and I'll include medical doctors that were putting out information about what they were observing in their offices, have been canceled, lost their license, just so that everything could be controlled. Our health and our decisions could be controlled. It's sad. My sources of information, what I rely on the most, is you and me. It's what I see. I see enough people, and I hear so many stories, and those real stories are really all I need, personally. And I get to see, obviously, a lot more than you do because I'm the doctor. But over 20 plus years in practice, it's not hard to establish what's working, what's not, what's truthful, what's not, based on the stories that I hear and that I witness. This is just for you to think about. So the brain and body diet, and I had a whole bunch of books, different types of diets to bring. I totally forgot to bring them. Well, maybe next month. If you come back next month, we'll have them out for you. There's so many great sources to find, whether they're recipe books or information. But if you can't have a healthy brain, you can't have a healthy brain if your body is broken. And you can't have a healthy body if your brain is broken. In other words, your brain and body are connected. It sounds kind of obvious, right? Well, your brain runs everything in your body, absolutely everything. It's in charge. So it's really important that we are aware of that before we see what's coming here in the upcoming slides. But my top 3 goals, this is me personally, every day. These are the top 3 things I think about daily in order to promote health. And it's not a complete list of everything you need to keep track of, but these are mine. These are my top 3. When I eat something, my first thought is, did God make this? Or was it man-made? You know, so I want to eat as many God-created foods daily as possible. That's my first goal every day. My second goal is keep my enzyme levels as high as possible. So enzymes, every process in any living thing, whether it's a human body or a plant, requires enzymes. Without enzymes, life just doesn't happen. It's not possible. Like vitamins and minerals are coenzymes. So their job is to assist an enzyme in doing its job. The reason why the enzyme story needs to be told is because as we age, from our late 20s and onward, our enzyme productions keep declining. And so I'm kind of a unique test subject because I started taking systemic enzymes, not digestive enzymes, systemic enzymes. You take those on an empty stomach. That's the flyer that you have. We just happen to have a lot of these, so we put them out. I've been taking those since I was in college, and I've never stopped. If there's one supplement that I never miss, they're enzymes. And so systemic enzymes are required for everything. We'll talk about those some more as we go along. But that is one of the key elements to promoting and maintaining function at a high level your whole life. And I can tell you today that I heal really fast, and it was not the case when I was younger. I have a lot of energy, and there's a lot of things that I would give enzymes credit for. But I started taking them for a shoulder injury that I had in college. I separated my shoulder playing hockey, and it wasn't getting better, and the season was about to start. So I got injured the previous season. The season was about to start. I was getting really nervous that I wouldn't be able to play, and a friend of mine told me about enzymes. Back then, they were controversial. No one really ever talked about them because they thought they were too large to absorb, that you really couldn't do any good. It'd be a waste of money. But I tried them, and my shoulder got better. Not only that, but I told you about my heart surgery, right? My scar was a very large, painful scar, and it dissolved in half in less than 2 months. So I said, if it does that on the outside, I'm never going to stop taking these. And I haven't ever since. So number 3 is hydrate through foods and fluids. So when I eat something, my mind goes, is this food going to take water out of me, or is this food going to give me water, right? So dried items are going to suck water out of your body, and foods that are hydrated the way God made them hydrate your body. So of course, drinking plenty of fluids is important. But those are the things that I keep in mind. So if that's the only thing you remember from today, then I think we're successful. So what is God food, or food by God? Well, it's intelligent food. It's rich, full of nutrients. Nutrients that are designed by God to nourish the body by God, right? They contain water, and they contain a lot of enzymes and antioxidants and all sorts of nutrients like that. So I used to say that your body is, or you are, what you eat. But over the years, I've come to realize that that's not always true. I think we are what our bodies can do with what we eat. So who would say that at this point in time, you feel like you know more people than ever before that are ill, or maybe that have passed? And you know, I'm obviously in contact with a lot of people, but personally, I feel like I know a whole lot more people that either have passed in the past year, or that have serious health issues that they didn't have before. If that's you, can you raise your hand? I just want to make sure it's not just me. Okay. But in conversations with other people, that's what we're finding. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm doing this lecture today, is because we need to be proactive. I think that in general, our overall health as a population is declining rapidly. And if you don't want to be part of those statistics, you need to be proactive. And so hopefully this will be enough to, kind of give that extra nudge of motivation to be proactive. So foods by man are created, altered by man. It's food that God did not design for your body and for your body to consume on a regular basis. The way you can identify them, and some are harder than others, but the farther away it is from its natural state, the less effective it is to digest, the less effective it is to promote healing your body, but really the more interference that it creates. You'll see that image there on the right side, hybrid foods. You've heard of hybrid cars, right, where they can maybe go from gas to electric. Well, hybrid foods are like foods that God originally made, but then they've been modified by man. So that's what that is. And, ever wonder how we get the seeds out of watermelons without opening them? Or seedless grapes, you don't find that in the wild. This is man-altered. And so it's convenient, right? Because you don't have to pluck the seeds out. But what does that do to our body over time? And that's really the big question, because we have more and more of our food is like that. And so food by man in general, it can sit in your GI tract. It moves very slowly, so it'll definitely slow gut motility. And it could be very poisonous to the body. So our design as human beings is obviously physical and mental, but also spiritual. And I bring that up because here at BBRS, the team of experienced clinicians that are here have all agreed that we are not just physical beings, we are spiritual beings. And we are in the process of trying to establish a way to really bring in that spiritual component. We have Jennifer, who's here, our in-house minister. We have a prayer room, and so we just opened in August. So we've got a lot of things that we're trying to figure out. But that's one thing that's really important to us that we want to really offer, to the patients that come here. So be on the lookout for more on that in the near future. So there's the brain. Your brain controls everything, as I said earlier. You may not have known that your brain weighs about 2 to 3% of your full body weight, but yet it consumes 25% of your total body glucose, 20% of your total body oxygen, and 20% of your total cardiac output is consumed by the brain. 1/4 of the fuel used by your body is used by your brain, and 1/5 of the oxygen is used by the brain, and 1/5 of your total blood. So if there's a problem with the metabolism of your body, there's a problem with the brain. An interesting fact about the gut, and I'm sure you've all heard connection, right? There's a connection between the gut and the brain. Some people say your gut's your second brain. I strongly disagree. But I understand it's very helpful to say it that way. And the reason why it's said that way is because the connection is so close and so tight. And so with that being said, if you can change the health of your gut in just one day of eating poorly, it says 1 to 4 days, you can change your microbiome in your gut. 1 day is all it takes. That 1 day will impact your brain health. So a few more numbers before we get into those 10 healing blocks, right? That's what we're here for. 1/3 of Americans have anxiety or depression. That's a pretty big number. And, I think it's probably higher now because I feel like after having gone through COVID and being having gone through all that we've gone through, I know that in my practice, I just saw a lot more people come in with that as a lead complaint. 80% of women are unhappy with their bodies. 20% of Americans suffer with food addictions. 2/3 of Americans experience significant stress about their future. Traumatic brain injury is on the rise, and neurons in the brain are very delicate. Just think about inflammation, that chronic inflammation. If you have inflamed neurons in your brain and you have a traumatic injury that may injure your brain, those neurons are very delicate. If they're inflamed, they're like ticking time bombs. And I'll say this because I see a lot of patients with traumatic brain injuries. And sometimes, you know, we see people who've had barely any trauma, and yet they look like they fell off a building or something, you know. And some people had massive trauma, and they're totally fine. Like, how does that happen, you know? And I think it really comes down to that, is what is the integrity of those cells? You know, does it take just a little bit to set them off or to injure them? So stroke is third leading cause of death in women and fifth in men. 13% over age of 60 have memory loss, and Alzheimer's diagnosed every 60 seconds. So this is where we are. This is just to motivate you a little bit to be proactive. Obviously, if you're here, you're proactive, but hopefully take your journey to a whole other level. So here are some symptoms. I know you've got a survey. I'm encouraging you to fill out that survey. It's just to give you an idea of what is your brain-body connection like. Because what I would reinforce is that as your health level goes down, you get a little bit more of a separation between your brain and your body. Not a structural separation, but a functional separation. If you feel over-obligated and stressed, in other words, a little bit of stress feels like a ton of stress, if that's you, then it's likely that you have a breakdown between your brain and body function. Some people have a whole lot of stress, and it's like they don't have any. You know, they're like, yeah, bring it on, I'm good. So weight gain is another other sign. Fluid retention, feeling puffy all over, or dull skin color, or sensitive to chemicals. A lot of people have heightened sensitivities. That's an indicator of possible fluid retention. Brain fog, sluggishness, trouble concentrating or thinking clearly, slow mental processing. All those are signs. Complacency, less empathy, social isolation, feeling the need to dominate or control, and then leaky gut, bloating, and there are many other signs of leaky gut. Being overwhelmed, restless, anxious, difficulty sleeping, feel like you're burning out, depression, impulsivity, aggression, cravings for sugar, alcohol, addictive tendencies, feeling lack of sovereignty or freedom or security about your health or future, feeling that your short-term memory is slipping. Those are all indicators. So this is what we can expect from implementing this brain-body diet. Feeling a greater sense of calmness, being more energized, more centered, clear-headed, leaner, and smarter. Now, I say this, you know, I don't want to make it sound like diet is everything. Diet is huge. It's not everything. You know, you may be implementing diet perfectly. You know, like I said earlier, sometimes it's not necessarily that you are exactly what you eat. There could be a problem neurologically, or there could be some other issues there that need to be worked through in order to really express the fullness of what you're consuming and getting the benefit from that. So just kind of be mindful of that as well. But your body will function more easily. You'll resolve your deepest ailments and finally feel a sense of peace. And you'll make smarter decisions, and you'll love better. When I say that you'll love better is when you feel that internal sense of, we'll call it stress, or you feel like something's off and your body is not dealing with the level of toxicity that it contains well, it makes you very irritable. You just feel like it's not right. And it's something that's really hard to control. And so, you know, take this from, I'm the person that I struggled through school because concentrating was a bear for me. Like, I would fall asleep reading, you know, so, but my level of determination and motivation is ultra high. So if I decide I'm going to do something, I will struggle through it, but I will get there. And so sadly, it didn't have to be as hard as it was. And so, but anyway, that's kind of what got me here too. So it maybe had to happen. But I got to live both ways. So on your survey, you have these 1 through 10. As I'm about to start with number 1, we're getting there. As I go through number 1, and if you feel like this is a healing block that you have, I would encourage you to mark an X on that number on your sheet. So out of 10, we'll see how many of the 10s you have. Okay? Number 1 is toxins. So toxins will separate functionally your brain from your body. They first clog up the liver, but then they ultimately will back up into your brain, because the best way to protect your body from toxins that you cannot get rid of is to put them in fat cells. And remember, I said the brain is 2/3 fat. Eventually, it all backs up right into the brain. And so here's some facts. 1 out of 7 people that take SSRIs, these are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They're medications for depression. They only are effective in 1 out of 7 people. There's pretty low effectiveness. Obviously, for the people who take them, who find them effective, it could be life-changing, right? They feel so much better. I'm only putting that out there because what happens as we have toxins backing up into the brain, they affect brain function. You know, serotonin is primarily produced in the brain, in the brainstem. And so function in the brain will change. And so I want to put that out there mostly because if you start promoting that detoxification system, it's really amazing what you can find. And then moderate to severe concussion increases your risk of dementia by 90%. We do a lot of concussion rehab here. And, you know, if you're ever in a situation where you have a fall or an accident, or you know someone who's had a concussion, even if they feel like they're doing okay, they should get checked. Because there are things that we can find objectively in our testing that could become a big problem later on, even if it seems like, you know, they're functioning well. So neurogenesis and synaptogenesis are big words, but they're ongoing through life. And so neurogenesis is the growth and development of new nerve cells. New nerve cells in your brain, your brain keeps making new nerve cells constantly through your whole life. Synaptogenesis is when those cells have more connections. The more connections you have, the more efficient your brain is. Okay? It's important to know that, because the choices that you make every day can impact this. Bisphenol A, BPA, which is found in plastic and also in canned foods, will negate synaptogenesis up to 100%. Isn't that crazy? There's a lot of plastic, right? I see a lot of it on your tables. Jennifer had a great idea. She said, we should have water bottles for everyone. I said, you know what? Slide 1's going to be a problem for that. It's not going to work. They can bring their own. But we do have glasses in there and water if you want to get some. All right. So toxins. We can get toxins through food, drinks, air, on our skin with makeup and things like that. So how do we avoid these toxins? Well, avoid plastic water bottles. A little late for us, right? But we can always start this afternoon. And plastic food containers. I mean, is it possible to avoid all plastic? Actually, let me back off one step here. Is it possible to avoid all toxins? Like, there actually is something wrong with absolutely every food there is. So if you're trying to do this perfect, just give up right now. It's not possible. Just do your best. Do the best you can do. There's something wrong with everything. And that's just where we are today. Now, it is possible that you could grow your own food and you can have your own farm and you could kind of contain it and make it near perfect, you know. But man, that's a lot of work. Eat organic and GMO-free foods. Use organic skincare products. Replace tuna with salmon. You know, obviously this is a very short list. There's a whole lot more to it, but tuna is a lot more toxic than salmon is. Try to avoid the farm raised and go with wild and avoid alcohol. This is just a short list to kind of tease you with initially. But the effects of toxins on the brain and body are pretty significant. It can cause inflammation. It can increase oxidative stress. It can cause leaky blood-brain barrier, which basically we have a barrier that prevents toxins from going into the brain, and when they get leaky, these toxins get into the brain. hormone disruption, compromised brain cell signaling, compromised brain development, cognitive problems, compromised mitochondrial function, which you need for energy. Okay? So here's a chart that gives you a list of toxins on the left-hand side. The first one is arsenic, which is really a result of pesticides and insecticides. That is found in dark meat fish, shellfish, meat, poultry, dairy products, rice, cereal, beer, wine, tap water. And the effect on the body is skin, lung, and bladder cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. AGEs, or advanced glycation end products, they're found in charred food. You're going to be really depressed by the end of this hour. I'm sorry, but we just need to know. Charred food are partially burnt foods. You're going to really need my help by the time we're done. We'll pray for you. But it causes inflammation and Alzheimer's. Nitrogens, they're added to flash freeze food and food packaging to preserve quality. That's packaged foods. And those can lead to Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, and fatty liver. We do have some solutions coming. Glyphosate and I won't even try it. Herbicides and pesticides. Non-organic foods is where they're found. They can lead to cancer, birth defects, neurological defects, reproductive defects, immunotoxicities. Fluoride, primarily in tap water. So filters don't take out fluoride. You need to get a special filter for fluoride. You can get them, but it's not your average filter. It lowers IQ, cognitive impairment, and hypothyroidism. And then alcohol, obviously we know where that comes from. Cancer, liver, digestive issues, and cardiovascular disease. So can we completely eliminate toxins? No, we can't. We can do our absolute best to avoid them, but the best thing you can do, since we can't eliminate them, is help your body do a better job at those 3 phases of detoxification and elimination, because our body has the ability to get rid of them. And actually what we're finding too is that 50% of the people have genetic mutations within a particular cycle that happens in all of our cells. It's called the methylation cycle. That cycle needs to work well to get rid of toxins and to make energy. More than half of us have an impaired have mutations within that cycles that create an impairment. So in other words, our ability to get rid of toxins is not optimal in more than half of the population. There are things you can do in order to help support it. But before we get to that point, phase 1 of detoxification, it requires enzymes. Enzymes are responsible for the majority of that first phase. And that first phase is transforming toxins into water-soluble excretion. When you pee what pee looks like water, right? It doesn't look like fat. So you have to create that conversion to eliminate toxins. So transforming them to be bound by other molecules in phase 2 to make them even more water-soluble and easier to excrete. Enzymes, but in addition to enzymes, some coenzymes are also required, like magnesium, selenium, zinc, B vitamins, antioxidants, like vitamin E, C, and various carotenoids. And those really come from colored vegetables, like orange ones, yellow ones, and red ones, like your tomatoes and things like that. All these slides, by the way, we're going to make this available on our website, so we'll be able to get those. So phase 1, you know, this is really an oversimplification, but in terms of some of the natural dietary foods that you can consume, high quality protein sources are essential to support phase 1. So phase 2, oh, you know what? Let's do a drawing. I was saying we should do some, yeah. So we've got close to $400 or $500 worth of products here that we're giving away. These are enzymes. You all have a flyer about Fibrenza. This is my personal all-time favorite. For those of you who've known me a while, you've heard about systemic enzymes before. But we're going to give this one away. It's $95 is what it's worth. You take these on an empty stomach.
Did everybody get a chance to put their name in here? I put yours. No? Okay.
Let's do for the next one.
Okay.
Sorry, we got to keep it moving. Okay, well, you want to pick it? Okay. Barbara Geller. Yay! You want to give that to Barbara? Thanks. And we'll leave that here. Yeah. Okay. So now phase 1 of detoxification will be perfectly supported for you. So you need enzymes for everything. One of the greatest consequences of chronic inflammation, systemic inflammation. So we know our body inflames, right, when we have an injury. That's important, that's good, that's healthy, we need that. Because when your body's injured, you need to bring fibrin to start laying down a new matrix. And think of fibrin like like the 2x4s in your walls. You know, you want to put sheetrock, but you first need to have a frame. That's what fibrin is. So when you have inflammation, fibrin production kicks in your body. And you need that when you have an acute injury. If you have chronic systemic inflammation, you get fibrin laying down constantly throughout your body. And that becomes a problem. You know, you've heard of scar tissue buildup in your body, in your organs, in your brain, and all sorts of different places. So, Barbara, not for you. So fibrenza, systemic enzymes do that. There's 2 different enzymes in that concoction there that eat up scar tissue. And I'm telling you this because this was my revelation when I started taking them I think I was 21. I'm in my 40s now. I was 21 when I first took them, and I could visually see scar reduction. And my scar was a 7-year-old scar. I had done a lot of deep tissue work, and also I was doing all the creams in the world and all those things that you do for scarring. And then I would take that, and that's all I had to do. But anyway, it's pretty amazing. So phase 1. Now, phase 2, we'll take products from phase 1 and bind them to substances called conjugates. All these terms don't really matter. It's just to say that conjugates are amino acids, they're glutathione, they're sugars, methionine, sulfur. Sulfur is found in garlic, onions, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cabbage, and then acetyl-CoA. So glutathione is like the Goliath of antioxidant. It is the strongest, most powerful antioxidant you can take. You may have heard of NAC, right? Oh, wrong one. NAC, you need NAC to make glutathione. So NAC is that one where, you know, with all these spike proteins that we have in our system now from that, past few years, these spike proteins, we're finding that they're staying in the system. And to get rid of them, you need glutathione. You need NAC. It's some of the most, to date, most effective ways to get rid of those spike proteins. So one of my favorite glutathione supplement is this one here. It's called Oxycell. And it's a cream that I put on my face every night. It's like instead of a face cream, I use glutathione cream. And you know, I've been using this for many years, and I have a lot of family members and friends that use it as well every day. So OptiCleanse, we can give this one away too. Use it at night, put it on your face before you go to sleep, and you get your glutathione levels up high. Can we do another drawing? Maybe Gianna can do the drawing. Oh, well, then you get to win it. Kay, do you want it, Kay? All right. Okay, there you go. So you need those antioxidants to support phase 2. So phase 2 natural foods are eggs, cruciferous vegetables, garlic, onions, leeks, shallots. Of course, organic, ideally. Now, phase 3 is waste removal. and that's the excretion phase. So the important thing to know about phase 3 is that if your gut health is compromised, all those toxins that are meant to exit your body will then be reabsorbed and sent right back to your liver. And that's when your toxic load can really rise. So really promoting a healthy gut flora is critical to support this phase. And we're doing a lot of giveaways right in the beginning. So the best thing for maintaining a healthy gut flora, and I have 21 years of practice of using all sorts of different products. A lot of them were okay, high quality, but are we really seeing that much of a difference? So probiotics are essential for this phase to really maintain a healthy gut flora. And my favorite, I only recommend one anymore, and it's called Megaspore Biotic. It's made by Microbiome Labs. This is what it's like. They just changed the label. So some of you are already taking it and maybe have a different label on it. They changed the label. But this is one that I'd say 90, maybe even 99%, really high percentage of people who take it notice a difference. So studies show that 2 of these a day for 30 days will seal your gut. So if you have leaky gut, if you have too much spacing between the villi within your gut, that's how you absorb nutrients, and you're absorbing large molecules that should not be absorbed. 30 days of this can actually help seal that. So super powerful. If you think you're regular now, it will be redefined by taking this. So let's do another drawing. It's called Megaspore Biotic. So here's the thing with probiotics. These are human bacteria. So at the origin, it originally came from human source, grown in a lab now, but they're human bacteria, and they're spores, which basically means that when you take a pill that's full of vegetable-based bacteria, most of those actually die off in your stomach. A lot of them pass through, but most of them die off. These, they all make it through because they're within the spore. And then the spore opens up and releases the bacteria in your intestines.
Patricia Cook.
Patricia! You're rewarded for your hard work at the massage chair. Okay. Now, I personally now, when you get to a point where it's more of like a maintenance thing, you don't have to take 2 a day. It's like 1 every 2 or 3 days kind of thing. All right, but phase 3 is really important. That's the elimination phase. Number two is refined sugar. So many of you who have heard me talk about diet for a while now, I talk about sugar first. Sugar is at the very top of the list. If you want to bring inflammation down and really help your body heal, the sugar has got to be taken out. And the hard thing with sugar is that, you could say, I'll do a little bit here, a little bit there. Yeah, sure, but the problem with that is that eventually that little bit grows to a little bit more and a little bit more, and because it's so addictive. And so some conditions associated with high intake of sugar are increased systemic inflammation. It causes low blood flow to the focus part of your brain. It lowers cognitive function, memory, and intelligence. And there's some exceptions. We're going to get to those in a second. It increases risk of insulin resistance. Insulin is what you need to absorb the sugar. Insulin resistance means you're not absorbing the sugar as you should. Metabolic syndrome is also another big side effect, which is high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high cholesterol. And it increases your risk of heart attack and stroke, diabetes, of course, and obesity. Some more conditions: decreases the brain's ability to repair injury, it limits the body's ability to process omega-3 fatty acids, exerts long-term molecular changes in the brain, and especially the hippocampus, which affects memory and emotional regulation. Increased risk for depression, shortens lifespan by 5 years or more, and harmful to the hippocampus, which I covered that already. Okay. So here's the exception to that rule. When it comes to what sugar does to that focus part of your brain. In obese adolescents, blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, that's that executive part of the brain, decreases. Okay, so not good for them. And blood flow to the hypothalamus increases, which is your appetite signaling. But in lean adolescents, and my son was just asking me that because I have friends who eat a lot of sugar, and how come they're not, why are they not gaining weight? He's 10. And, he's got just a little bit, in there, and he goes, well, how come they don't have that and eat a lot more sugar than I do? Because I talk about sugar a lot in the house. Well, I mean, there it is. So in lean adolescents, blood flow to the prefrontal cortex increases with sugar intake. The exact opposite of obese adolescents. And then blood flow to the hypothalamus doesn't change. So when it comes to cancer, cancer cells have 50 times more insulin receptors than regular cells. I mean, it's not even close. Those cells need to be completely starved. Like if you've got cancer and you're having sugar, you're just, I mean, it's not a good mix. You have to starve those cells. And of course, the sugar addiction only grows with time. If you look at this chart from 1700 to 2000, it was a sharp increase over time. There's lots of health compromises associated with sugar. I'm not going to read them all. These slides will be available, but the list is long. There's more than 30. These are just 30 really common ones. I'll give you a chance to take a quick glance at them. But I think you get the idea. Sugar is bad. It's kind of like the devil, very tempting, sweet. It's like, oh, it's not so bad. It's a little bit here, a little bit there. It's exactly like the devil. So that's what I call sugar. It's the devil. It helps. I stay away from it now. So, by the way, if there's no sugar, and I'll go a step further and say if there's no sugar and no grains, there's no arthritis. I mean, your aging speed will slow down significantly if you remove those two. But then you have sugar substitutes, which are really, really bad too. The most common ones are saccharin, aspartame, sucralose. And make some marks on there. If you're consuming those on your survey, mark those at the bottom. So saccharin is the sweet and low, aspartame is NutraSweet, sucralose is Splenda. And they're associated with all sorts of issues like cancer. They're toxic to the brain. They can cause neurological disorders, gastrointestinal disorder, headaches, epilepsy, vision problems, blood sugar increases, and even weight gain. So these are really, really harmful to the body. Actually, it's hard to say, like, which one would you go with? I think I would prefer the sugar over these, but neither one are good. So we have some other options. Stevia is one of them. I'm sure you've heard of stevia before. So stevia at this point in time has got some pros and it's got some cons. And by the way, those other sweeteners that I talked about before, the artificial ones, they are hundreds of times sweeter than regular sugar is. And that's kind of one of the appeals. A lot of people will say, oh, I love the Coke Zero, because it tastes better. No wonder you like it better. It's a lot sweeter. So stevia. So stevia is natural, no calories, so that's kind of a great thing, right? It doesn't raise blood sugar. It's available in liquid and granule and powder forms. The cons is that it's expensive. Real sugar is cheap. The artificial sweeteners are cheap. This is more expensive. And it has some side effects. At this point, they're not, as severe as the previous one that we mentioned, but bloating, nausea, gas, a lot of people will mention that when they have stevia. And it can give a slight bitter aftertaste in some cases. Now here's another one, monk fruit. And this is one that's used more and more. It's used in some of our products, like this is a cleansing. Some of you have done the cleanse, you recognize it. It has a little bit of a sweet taste to it, and monk fruit is often used in those products. At this point in time, there's not a whole lot of cons in terms of health. Like, there's no side effects that we know of. It's harder to find. It's definitely more expensive. Some people, if you have too much of it, might say that there's a little bit of an aftertaste that they don't like. But the pros is that, again, it's 0 calories, it doesn't affect your blood sugar, and again, there's no evidence that there's anything negative at this point in time. So we'll see what we can find. But I know we've already talked about detoxification, and I might have been a better time to offer this one. So what this is here, this has become like my second favorite. And you know, enzymes are my absolute never miss. Like, this is my second favorite. And it really, what got me there, my story with this goes back to not last New Year, but the New Year before that. I had a severe arthritis attack in my hands. It came in all at once, and it was so painful. I'm a chiropractor. I use my hands all the time, and I cannot imagine, you know, not using them. It was January 1st, and so January 2nd, I stopped eating all foods because I was afraid for my profession that I might not be able to do it if this didn't let. I couldn't even bend my finger without pain. And so for 10 days, all I had was, these are meal replacement packets. They're shakes. And it has everything you need to facilitate detoxification and reduce inflammation. 10 days straight. I did 3 of these a day for 10 days. By the end of the first day, it was already feeling better. By day 10, it was completely gone. It was back to normal. And it's never come back because my level of motivation since then has been ultra high. I've had birthdays, holidays. I don't want the sugar. Like, keep it away. It's the devil. I don't want it. It means the end of my career. That's how I see it, right? And so I can't do it. So I did 10 days of that. But ever since, you know, I have these. I had that for lunch today. So I have them throughout the day because now that I know what I know, but now that I experienced what I experienced, I'm realizing we're in different times now. It's easier to have inflammation than ever before. I had a pretty clean diet. I had a really bad holiday that day where I had a lot of junk food, but that's all it took to ignite inflammation everywhere in my body, even though I had over 20 years worth of taking enzymes and all sorts of other great things. So let's do another drawing. Kendra's going to draw it. Keiko.
So 10 days?
10 days,
oh my
yeah.
God. That's for 3 days.
Keiko, if you don't want to do it, just pass it down the table. Someone will take it. Oh. But so I could actually backtrack a little bit. The very first cleanse that I've ever done, it was a 10-day cleanse. It was my first year in practice in 2002. And back then, I was still dealing with focus issues. It was hard for me to concentrate. I had low energy, had a lot to do, high motivation, low energy, difficulty concentrating. I did 10 days of cleanse. It was not that one, it was a different one. That one didn't exist back then. And my mental capability sharpened so much. I felt a lot of energy. I felt very focused. I felt like all the problems that I struggled with my entire life up until that point were gone. I was like, that's all I had to do. And anyway, so that was my first experience with cleansing. I recommend cleansing at least once a year. But if you're continuing to take nutrient supplements or even, you know, those meal replacement shakes here and there through the year, you may not even need to do a full 10-day cleanse. You know, some people do shorter ones as well. But I would recommend also taking probiotics with it to help facilitate elimination. Okay. I feel like I want to take questions, but I really shouldn't. We'll wait till the end. Grains. That's the other devil. Bread, pasta. Romar. He's going to run out of here. Bread, pasta. Yeah. Bread, pasta, rice, cereal, oatmeal, pastries. And I mean, who doesn't love these, right? The thing is now, you can actually have alternatives for all of these that don't have grains. You can get grain-free everything nowadays. It was a lot harder, you know, 10 years ago. But back in ancient times, when all grains consumed were 100% organic and unrefined, there were still negative health effects associated with consuming grains back then, like decreased height, infant mortality, decrease in lifespan, increase in infectious disease, dental disease, osteoporosis, and bone disease. Now, 90% of our grain is highly processed, hybridized, genetically modified, filled with all sorts of pesticides and this and that. And so even, some of the organic one has been hybridized so much that it's hard to really get pure. But the most critical problem with grain consumption, no matter how much you can rationalize that, it's not so bad, in the end, it elevates your glucose levels. And that's a trigger for cravings. And so if you really want to starve your craving, I would recommend to avoid the grains. But they increase blood pressure, they raise your cholesterol, that shortens your lifespan, increase food cravings, stimulate cancer cell growth, increase osteoporosis, cause type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disease, celiac disease, irritable bowel syndrome. Autoimmune conditions, those are conditions where your immune system starts attacking your body, right? It's supposed to protect your body, but then it turns on you and attacks yourself. There used to be like 2 or 3 known autoimmune disease. There are hundreds now, hundreds. And some are specifically associated with grains or with gluten, and they specifically attack the brain. So this is how it works. Just kind of hang with me for a minute here. The metabolism of grains, okay, they're carbohydrate, and it stimulates insulin release. So insulin is what your body produces to absorb sugar. And that sugar is then stored in fat. High insulin level will suppress, another big word, glucagon and human growth hormone. The reason why that's important, so again, sugar, insulin, glucagon comes down. You need glucagon to burn fat. And you need human growth hormone to make more muscle. High insulin levels cause hunger as well. So then you got, again, sugar, high insulin, more hunger, suppress glucagon, which directly related to your ability to store fat or get rid of fat. So that whole mechanism happens even with the best of grains that you can get. Number 5, hydrogenated oils. Now this is one that really I kind of conveniently forgot about for the past few years because I have 3 young kids and they tend to love all the things that they really shouldn't have, and the more they have them, the more they want them, and the harder it is for them to have the foods that they should have. It's a really tough situation. But hydrogenated oils, I'd say the one food that has the highest concentration of trans fatty acids are French fries. And they're incredibly toxic to your body. So they're created by an artificial processing of vegetable oil to retard spoilage and keep baked sweets and margarine from falling apart or melting at room temperature. Part of all heart and circulatory disease is directly attributed to the intake of trans fats. So they're found in margarine, baked foods, refined foods, fast foods, packaged foods, Crisco, Cool Whip, commercial mayonnaise, and salad dressings. A lot of salad dressings will have them. So you got to really look at those ingredients. A lot of salad dressings will have sugars. Commercial corn, hydrogenated oils, donuts, crackers, cookies, pastries, deep fried foods, potato, corn chips, frosting, candies. Very sad day. So which fats are good? Really, that's the big question. Well, you've heard of omega-6, omega-3. Both omega-6 and omega-3 are essential fatty acids. They're essential to your body. The problem with omega-6 and omega-3 is, again, they're both essential, but their ratio is critical. So the ratio is the problem. If you have too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3, it will promote more inflammation in your body. And so the ideal ratio would be as close to 1-to-1 as you can get. So it's really tough to do. In Japan, they have the best ratios anywhere in the world, they're at 3-to-1, from omega-6 to omega-3. In the US, we're at 15-to-1. So omega-6 fats come from vegetable oil, corn oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, sesame oil, canola oil. Fatty fish is probably top, or fish oils, your #1 best source of omega-3s. Flax seeds, grass-fed, free-range livestock and poultry, ghee, which is like clarified butter. And then in descending order from there, raw butter, organic butter, store-bought butter, those are decent options too. Now, a lot of these have a combination of both omega-6 and 3, but they do tend to be higher in 3 than a lot of other foods. So, fish oil is probably one of the best supplement, like top of the list things you can take, specifically for this reason. And so there's lots of good ones out there. One of my favorite is krill oil. Krill doesn't smell fishy, ever, and it has a lot of antioxidants. And so this is one of my favorite ones. This bottle has quite a lot. It's got 120 in there. It's $118 for this bottle. So krill tends to be more expensive than a lot of your fish oil. But we're going to give this away right now. So let's do another drawing. This is what I take. And again, it's kind of getting 2 birds with 1 stone because you get the fish oil and you also have the antioxidant. Gianna. Yeah. All right. Gianna was asking earlier if she were to draw her own name, she could win. So glad you got to win. All right. So fast, refined, and fried foods. Again, they're associated with so many problems. The list is actually longer than this one here, but it definitely is a big contribution to your energy level. It can lead to leaky gut issues and difficulty with digesting because they're indigestible. Those trans fats are indigestible, so they really block absorption of other essential nutrients. And they're a leading contributor to a lot of most intestinal disease. So, number 6 is alcohol. So alcohol, we know a lot about alcohol, I'm sure, but beyond the physical effects, it's the mental, the social, the effect that it can have on interpersonal relationships as well, because it does affect, it affects your mind, it affects your brain and your behavior. So, alcohol is one of those things that I personally grew in a home where, we lived in Europe for some time and we were having wine at the table. I was like 12 years old and drinking wine with the whole family. Not a lot, just a little bit. And it was pretty common, and we lived in France and Switzerland, and it's not unusual there. But I got to be around a lot of excess consumption of alcohol really early, that by the time I got to age 18, I stopped drinking entirely. So in Canada, I'm from Canada originally, you can start drinking at 18. Well, that's when I stopped. I started at 16. Well, 12, but then experimented with it a little too much for 1 year, and then I was done. So the effect, what I've seen it do to people I know, to me was not worth it, and I felt like I could very easily get addicted and fall into that trap, so I decided to get addicted to something really good for me instead. So, but it can lead to progressive liver disease, cardiovascular issues, increased risk of stroke, pancreatitis, chronic digestive issues, increased risk of certain cancers, immune system can be weakened, chronic memory and other learning issues, anxiety, depression, and other mental health problems. And that's a personal choice, The thing is, what I want to just reinforce here is that something's different about today than yesterday. You know, our level of health is more delicate now than it ever was before. And that's why I want to keep reinforcing. Think about, I know changing everything overnight is overwhelming, if not impossible. But just keep taking one positive step in the right direction. You know, tackle one thing and work with that for a while, and then tackle another one and work with that for a while, and just kind of keep progressing that way. So overuse of animal products is number 7. Now, I'm in favor of consuming animal products, but the problem is that most of it has antibiotics, steroids, and drugs and hormones in them. And so if you're going to have animal products, try to go for the organically raised grass or vegetable-fed animal products. Dairy is on there. You know, think of dairy as, and I love cheese and dairy. I mean, I lived in Europe for a while. I have family there now, and so I love it too. But I would say, you know, at the very least, just consume it in moderation. But think of dairy. You know, God made milk for who? He didn't make it for the cows. He made it for the calves. And he didn't make it for humans. Because if you consider the amount of growth that a cow will have, or a calf will have in the first 2 years of life, they'll go from 70 pounds to 700 pounds. We go to 30 pounds in 2 years. Obviously, consuming their milk, you know, for us is not ideal, right? We do it anyway. I think a lot of people do. But the problem, too, one of the biggest concerns I have with dairy is that it is one of the lead food associated with allergic reactions, but also it's highly acidic. So when it comes to bone health and bone density, you want a pH that's more alkaline, because your pH levels in your blood cannot change. They have to stay stable. They have to stay stable. Your body will sacrifice your calcium out of your bones to stabilize your blood pH. Okay? So, and that's what happens. When your body's too acidic, your calcium will be stripped out of your bones to neutralize, because calcium is a great neutralizer, a pH neutralizer. So it'll neutralize the blood pH. And so dairy is acidic. Caffeine is number 8. So caffeine is a stimulant. It's found... Oh, so sorry. I'm just a messenger. It's found in chocolate, coffee, soda, vitamins, herbs, and medications. And so I was wondering if we had something else to give away, but we're all out. So the problem with caffeine is that, you know, have you ever heard of homeostasis? It's a state of balance. It's your God-given balance in function in your body. And so over time, as your body keeps consuming more and more caffeine or more stimulants, your body has to keep adjusting to that. You know, and there's always a downward trajectory to that stimulant as well, right? But over time, as you keep overstimulating, your body needs more and more and more of that stimulation just to get to a point where you're tired. Right? Do you ever find that you can drink a whole lot of coffee and it has no effect on you anymore? And so what I would say to you too is that there are other things you can do to really boost energy production. And I'm the person that was always tired early in my life. I mean, I couldn't run from here to that wall without feeling my chest, like my heart was going to blow out of my chest. And so I lived that way for 16 years. And then I had surgery, but then I was so toxic that my energy level was really low for a really long time. And so, but now, in my 40s, I'm the person that gets up in the morning. I can have 3 or 4 hours of sleep, but I can get up and go. And even though my body may be tired, I have enough reserves that I will get through the whole day and be totally fine. And then just have a really hard sleep that night. Now, I wasn't there before, but it takes work to get to that point. You need to keep detoxing and keep promoting good health and try to remove all the things that are interfering, you know, with your health. And it's a process. It takes time to get there. I have 23 years of taking systemic enzymes. I mean, I don't know anyone else, who's taken them that long. So number 9, additives, colorings, flavorings, and preservatives. We kind of touched on some of those, but those additives and colorings. So our church today had a festival out there. I stopped over before I came here. There was a whole lot of sugar over there. And my son comes up with, he won this candy and that candy. He's like, oh, can I eat that? And can I eat this? And it's like, well, everyone else is. And that's the situation that we're in as parents is, what do? They go to a birthday party, and there's all sorts of color in that cake. Am I going to tell them, no, you can't have it, but everybody else can? So, I think it's really important to be careful and tactful in those situations. So I let my kids, of course, have what everybody else is having in those situations. I try really hard to educate on the home front, and I think we can do a better job at it. But after preparing this lecture, it's been very helpful for me too, just to, to be even more familiar with some of the things that we can do. And I actually have some ideas of how to approach my kids with this. And so, and one of the ideas that I had is to create a disclaimer sheet for everything. So, for example, if we're at home and they want to eat something with grains, I'd be like, you can totally have that. First read the sheet and then have it. And the disclaimer would have absolutely everything that it does to you. And if they want to have it, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'll let them have it every day. But the only cost is they have to read that sheet. And I wonder how many days it's going to take. So I haven't made these yet, but I was thinking about that as I was preparing for this presentation. And I want to do that. I want to try that out, where it's no longer up to me, it's up to them, and I make it entirely their choice. Because, they go to school, they go to the dentist, and there's candy at the dentist, it's everywhere. So in the end, they have to be involved in the decision making. And you don't want to be the villain. But of course, we can control what's in our house. We just can't control what's outside. And there's a whole lot of devil outside. All right. But it damages the digestive system. It's indigestible. Damaged organs. It poisons the body. And these are not, I'm not being excessive when I say this. They are true poisons. I mean, I have many patients who come in who say, my child is different. When they have that blue dye or red dye, and I mean, their behavior changes entirely. So obviously it's affecting their brain, but it affects your metabolism as well. Makes it harder to lose weight. And many are made from the same chemicals that are found in household cleaners, and your medicine cabinet, and maintenance products, and in your garage. So. Number 10, we're getting there, condiments. You can make your own. Ketchup, barbecue, sweet pickles, fast food sauces. So anyway, a lot of these have sugars and all sorts of preservatives in them. Mustard's good, grapeseed oil, mayonnaise is good, olive oil, mayonnaise is good. There's all sorts of healthier options you can find that way as well. So chronic inflammation lays fibrin in your body. If anything, I'd like for you to at least remember that. Systemic chronic inflammation. Everything we talked about today causes inflammation. So if you look at your number 1 through 10, and you see, wow, I've marked a lot of those, you have chronic systemic inflammation. If you have chronic systemic inflammation, you're laying fibrin in your body everywhere. And so it slows every processes down. It impacts health at every level. And so if you want to reduce that chronic inflammation, I would make a strong suggestion, at least start tackling one of those at a time. It's a process. It's a lifelong commitment. Don't ever feel like you go on a diet for a certain amount of time. It's not that at all. You're going to have vacation meals. There's going to be times where you're going to have foods that you don't want to have or you shouldn't have. But you know what? It's okay. You're making a choice to say, this is a vacation meal. Have vacation meals. Don't beat yourself up if you have those meals. Just have them. Enjoy them, and then just do better moving on, and just keep on working on it. But it's never going to be perfect. Never. Just keep working on making it better. And my job today was just to make you realize that more than any other time in your life, now's the time to make a change. And I hope I got that point across. We're going to have many more of these. I'm going to do a whole series on health. We're going to talk about cardiovascular health because that is higher than it's ever been in humanity right now. There are more cardiovascular illnesses now. And see, the numbers aren't out yet. There's just early numbers, you know, that are revealed by doctors and clinics and hospital systems. But the numbers are really, really high. And so with that being said, we have one more gift to offer everyone. So if on your survey at the very bottom, if you circle yes, please see Kendra or Jennifer, or who's Jose still here? Okay. And you can schedule a time. It's a 30-minute time to do all those tests. They're phenomenal tests. I mean, so thrilled that we get to have that to offer you guys. But it'll give you a really good idea of where you stand from a metabolic standpoint, from a neurological standpoint. Of course, when patients come and see us, we do a very detailed assessment that's more thorough than that, but at least that gives you somewhat of a baseline, and that's really great to have. If you don't schedule that today and you want to do that some other time, or you call us later on, you'll have to pay for it, but it's totally worth it, and it's a really great deal even if you do have to pay for it. But anyway, at this point in time, I'll say thank you so much for your time, and I'm sorry if it went longer than you expected. Thank you to the massage team. They've been busy the whole time, and they're giving their time today to work. Yeah, I get a lot of thumbs up back there. And they're part of our practice here, so if you ever want to schedule appointments with them and things like that, they're phenomenal. Everybody that works in this clinic is handpicked to be here. Our clinical team is one of the best that I've seen put together ever, not because I'm here, but honestly, it's amazing people that are here.